The fountain at Crestwood Mall had always been quiet. By day, shoppers passed it without notice. By night, it became a hollow echo chamber of dripping water and forgotten coins. But tonight, beneath the cold glare of fluorescent lights, something was different. A deep, mournful howl tore through the air, unnatural, deliberate, as if mourning something lost. People stopped. Phones came out. The sound belonged to AK-9, standing motionless at the fountain's edge. No handler, no warning, just a dog staring at the water, growling low. Somewhere nearby, something was very wrong. If you appreciate immersive storytelling, please like and subscribe. It means a lot and keeps stories like this coming. Rain had been falling for hours before the howl broke the quiet. Crestwood Mall sat on the edge of Riverton, a small town of barely 8,000 people where everyone knew everyone else's business. It wasn't much of a place for crime, petty theft maybe, drunk arguments, but nothing worth calling detectives for. The mall itself was half empty, a relic of a dying economy. Stores closed one by one, their metal shutters curling like dead leaves. The fountain at the center, a circular basin of cracked stone and faded mosaics, was the last centerpiece of what had once been the town's pride. It was near 10 p.m. when Officer Mark Ellery got the call. Dispatch said possible disturbance, K-9 involved, but gave no further details. Ellery was halfway through a lukewarm coffee in his patrol car when the radio crackled again. "Mark, you need to see this," said Officer Lena Hayes over the line, her voice tight. She was already on scene, voice muffled through rain and static. Ellery drove slowly. Rain-slicked streets reflected the orange glow of street lamps, blurring everything into watercolor shapes. As he pulled into the lot, the sight stopped him cold. The fountain was lit by a dim pool of overhead light, water shimmering faintly in broken ripples. And at its edge stood a dog, AK-9 German Shepherd, black and tan coat, glistening wet, ears forward tense, staring down into the water. No handler, no leash, no movement except the slow wag of the tail that somehow felt like a warning. Ellery stepped out, boots crunching wet gravel. He called softly, Hey, buddy." The dog didn't flinch. Its eyes stayed fixed on something beneath the surface. Then it let out another howl, deep, ragged, hollow. The sound was almost human in its grief, and it made Ellery's stomach tighten. Hayes came up beside him, her flashlight swinging over the fountain. "What the hell is it looking at?" she murmured. Her breath steamed in the cold air. Ellery shook his head. "Don't know." He stepped closer, but the dog didn't move. A wet wind rattled the hollow roof above. Somewhere deep inside the fountain, water shifted oddly, rippling without any drop falling from above. Ellery squinted. It looked almost like something was moving under the water. Before he could speak, the dog barked, low and urgent, and stepped forward. Ellery reached instinctively for his radio. "Dispatch! We have AK-9 here with no handler. Possible disturbance in Crestwood Mall. Send backup." His voice was calm, but his gut told him this was bigger than a missing dog. Hayes was crouched by the fountain now, shining her light into the water. "Mark, you need to see this." She pointed. Beneath the surface, something dark and jagged shifted. Something that didn't belong in a fountain. Ellery leaned in. The water was murky from the rain, but he could make out shapes. Fabric, limbs, something that reflected light in the wrong way. He felt bile rise in his throat. "God damn it," he muttered. Before he could call it in, the K-9 barked again, louder, closer, then lunged into the fountain. The water splashed high, drenching both officers. Ellery drew his pistol, ready for anything. Hayes yelled something, but her words were swallowed by the sound of the dog's frantic growls. Ellery stepped up beside the fountain, peering into the water. Now he could see clearly a body, floating face down, tangled in something dark, clothing shredded, skin pale, hair slicked flat. The sight hit him harder than he expected. Hayes pulled out her radio. "Dispatch! We have a confirmed body. Need coroner and backup at Crestwood Mall immediately." The K-9 barked again, standing at the fountain's edge as though guarding something. Ellery's gaze flicked between the animal and the body. There was something in the dog's posture, Not fear, not aggression, but grief. Hayes moved closer to the fountain. This doesn't look like an accident. Ellery nodded slowly. No, this looks like murder. The rain poured harder. Through the glass walls of the mall, dim emergency lights flickered. Somewhere inside, a door slammed shut. Ellery glanced toward it. The sound was too deliberate to be the wind. Someone's here, Hayes said softly. Her hand hovered near her weapon. Ellery agreed, and they know we're here. The K-9 howled again, long and low. The sound echoed in the empty mall corridors, like a cry for help. Ellery felt a cold weight settle over him. Whatever was behind this, it wasn't just about a body in a fountain. It was about something far darker. Hayes looked at Ellery. We need to get inside. Find who did this. Ellery nodded. Agreed. He holstered his pistol and moved toward the mall entrance, rain dripping from his shoulders. Behind him, the K-9 stayed by the fountain, watching its breath steaming in the cold air. As they entered the mall, the sound of a faint voice, muffled, almost a whisper, drifted through the air. Ellery froze. Hayes tensed. The K-9's hackles rose. Somewhere deep inside Crestwood Mall, something was waiting, and it was watching them. The mall's automatic doors creaked shut behind Ellery and Hayes, sealing them inside with the sound of dripping rain. The air smelled of mold and dust, mixed with faint perfume from a shuttered boutique. The place was quiet now, too quiet. Somewhere above them, the second floor was dark, its windows blacked out. Emergency lighting cast pale amber pools on cracked tile floors, making the whole place feel like a forgotten stage. Ellery checked his watch. 10:30. Normally, Crestwood Mall closed at 9. That meant whoever was here was trespassing. Worse, they had been here for hours. Hayes moved ahead, flashlight sweeping over empty shop fronts. Mark, she whispered, there's no way this is random. Whoever left that body at the fountain wanted someone to find it. Ellery's mind churned. A body placed in public. Like that wasn't just an accident. It was a message. But for who? And why? They moved cautiously, boots clicking softly against the tiles. Somewhere deeper inside, the faint sound of dragging echoed. Hayes froze. Ellery stopped beside her. The sound came again, slow, deliberate, like something being pulled across concrete. Ellery signaled to her to keep quiet. They followed the noise toward an old corridor near the east wing. The hallway was narrower, walls stained from years of water damage. At the far end, a faint light pulsed, yellow, flickering. They moved closer. At the corridor's turn, Hayes stopped abruptly. "Mark," she said quietly. Her light swept over something that made his stomach turn. There was writing on the wall, not painted neatly, but scratched deep into the drywall with something sharp. The letters were uneven, desperate. They watch. They wait. Killer still here. Ellery's breath caught. His pulse quickened. Holy hell. He pulled out his radio again. "Dispatch. We need immediate backup. We have suspicious writing inside Crestwood Mall. Possible homicide and trespass." No reply. The static crackle made him glance up. The radio's light blinked once, then died. Hayes tightened her grip on her flashlight. It's the storm. Probably knocked out power. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed unease. We should keep moving. They followed the hallway to the stairs leading to the second floor. The K-9 stayed behind them at first, then padded silently up behind. Its breathing was heavy, chest rising and falling in tense rhythm. Ellery could feel the dog's alertness, like it knew something they didn't. The second floor was even quieter. Store windows stared blankly back at them. A few lights blinked faintly overhead. The air smelled sharper here, cleaner, metallic, like blood. Hayes' flashlight beam caught something on the floor, a small puddle, dark and sticky. Ellery stepped closer. It was blood. Fresh. "Mark," Hayes whispered, pointing toward an open doorway. From inside came a low sound, muffled, human. Ellery motioned for her to stay silent. They approached slowly. The K-9's growl began low, rumbling in its throat. Inside the room was worse than anything they could have imagined. The walls were lined with broken mannequins. Their plastic faces were cracked, eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Beneath them lay scraps of torn clothing, pools of blood, and a single shoe, a child's sneaker. Ellery's stomach turned cold. Jesus Christ. Hayes moved toward the center of the room. That's when they heard it. The sound of soft breathing. Ellery froze. Somewhere in the darkness, beyond the mannequin, something or someone was alive. The K-9 stepped forward abruptly, teeth bared, hackles raised. Then it barked, a deep, resonant bark that echoed through the mall. Immediately, the breathing stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ellery drew his weapon. "Who's there? Show yourself." His voice echoed against the broken mannequins. No reply, only the dripping sound of water somewhere in the distance. Hayes shone her flashlight into the corner. Ellery joined her. They found a small, narrow crawl space, half covered by debris. Inside it, the air was foul. Something moved again, slow, deliberate. Before Ellery could react, the thing inside spoke, a voice so faint and broken it sounded like a whisper through water. "They're coming!" Hayes gasped. Ellery motioned for her to step back. He aimed his flashlight inside the crawl space. There was a figure there, a young woman, her clothes torn, skin pale. Her eyes were wide, terrified, fixed on something behind them. The K-9 stepped forward, growling low. The woman looked at the dog and whispered hoarsely, He's still here." Ellery crouched beside her. Who's here?" Before she could answer, a sudden noise echoed from somewhere deeper in the mall. Metal scraping metal, slow and deliberate. It sounded close. Too close. Hayes pulled the woman out of the crawl space, keeping her close. Ellery glanced toward the sound. The K-9's ears perked sharply. Its growl deepened. They knew then it wasn't just a murderer hiding somewhere. It was something worse. Someone was hunting them. Ellery turned toward Hayes. "We gotta find the stairs to the roof. We can't stay here." Hayes nodded, agreed, "But we're not alone in this building." The woman in their arms whimpered, They'll kill us all." Ellery glanced at her. "We'll figure that out. But first, we need to get out here alive." They moved quickly, the K-9 leading the way, every muscle in its body tense. The air was thicker here now, every breath tasting of iron. Somewhere in the distance, deep inside Crestwood Mall, something was watching and waiting. The stairwell reeked of rust and mildew. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling, each drop a faint percussion in the oppressive silence. Ellery led the group upward, flashlight cutting through the darkness. Hayes followed close behind, her grip tight on her weapon. The young woman they had pulled from the crawl space, pale, trembling, and silent except for the occasional sob, stumbled behind them, and the K-9 stayed ahead, scanning every shadow, growling softly like a sentinel guarding a threshold to hell. Above them, the storm's roar grew louder. Rain pounded the roof in steady rhythm, masking other noises. Noises Ellery now feared were following them. The sound of dragging metal still echoed somewhere below, persistent and patient. They reached the roof entrance. The door was warped, the lock broken. Ellery forced it open. Outside, the wind slammed against them, carrying the scent of wet asphalt and something far fouler. Above the Crescent Mall, the storm sky churned dark, lightning tearing jagged seams of white across it. The rooftop was empty except for the sound of wind and the steady splash of rainwater pooling on concrete. Ellery stepped forward, scanning perimeter. Hayes kept the young woman close. The K-9 stopped suddenly at the roof's edge, hackles raised. Its ears twitched, nostrils flaring. Ellery followed its gaze. There, across the parking lot, under a broken street lamp, a figure stood watching them. Wet, shadowed, unmoving. Ellery squinted. It was wearing dark clothing, face obscured. No weapon was visible, but its stance was deliberate. The figure didn't move when they looked back. Ellery motioned to Hayes. "We're not alone." The figure stepped back into shadow. Then, without warning, it ran. Not toward them, but into the mall below. Ellery cursed under his breath. "It's still inside." Hayes turned toward him. "We can't just wait up here." Ellery glanced at the young woman. We need answers, and we're not getting them up here. They descended. The stairs groaned underfoot. The K-9 stayed close, barking softly but urgently. They reached the second floor again, only now the air was colder, heavier. Somewhere deeper in the mall, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. Ellery moved them toward the east wing, the place where the writing had been scratched into the wall. The blood trail was gone. The mannequins were overturned, broken plastic scattered like bones. The puddles of blood had dried into dark stains. Hayes stopped near the corridor. "Mark, look." On the floor was another message, written in smeared blood. "Trust no one. They are everywhere." Ellery swallowed hard. This isn't just a killer. This is someone or something trying to terrify us. They moved deeper, the mall now a labyrinth of shadow and silence. Their flashlight beams swept past closed stores, shattered glass, and empty display cases. The sound of breathing, human breathing, came again from somewhere ahead. Ellery signaled Hayes to be quiet. They followed the sound to an old maintenance door. The K-9 stopped, growling low. Hayes pressed her ear to the door. "It's coming from inside." Ellery kicked the door open. The smell hit them first, a sickly blend of rot and metal. Inside was a storage room filled with shelves of old mall equipment. But in the center of the room was the truth, a hidden lair. Blood, chains, makeshift bedding, and photographs. Hundreds of photographs pinned to the walls, of the mall, of people, of the missing. Among them were pictures of the K-9. Not posed photographs, grainy, unsettling shots of the dog, watching people, growling, its eyes fixed on them. Hayes stepped closer, her breath quickening. "This is insane." Ellery's eyes fell on one particular photo. It showed the fountain, the body in the water, and behind it, a figure crouched in the shadows, hand raised. But the hand was not human. From somewhere in the darkness of the storage room came a whisper. "They're watching." They spun around. The K-9 was gone. For a moment there was nothing but silence. Then the low growl returned, and the dog stepped out from behind a shelf, its coat slick with something dark. Its eyes glowed faintly in the flashlight beam. Ellery raised his pistol. "K-9, stand down." But the dog didn't obey. It stepped closer, growling. Hayes aimed her gun too. "Mark, wait." From behind them came another noise. Slow footsteps. Wet, heavy, closer. The young woman stumbled forward. "It's him. It's the one who did it." Ellery turned to her. "Who?" Her voice trembled. "The caretaker. He lives here. He never leaves. He's been feeding them." She pointed at the K-9. "It's not just a dog. It's his watcher, his guardian." Before Ellery could respond, the sound of metal scraping filled the room. A shadow moved against the wall. They turned, and there he was, the caretaker, a man in tattered clothes, his face hidden under a soaked hood. He stepped forward slowly, dragging something behind him. A body, another victim. Ellery fired. The shot rang out loud in the confined space. The caretaker dropped to his knees, then smiled, unnervingly calm. "It was never about killing," he said softly. "It was about showing them, showing everyone who watches, who waits." The K-9 barked sharply and lunged. Ellery fired again. Hayes aimed, but the man collapsed before she could shoot. The storm outside broke harder. Rain lashed against the roof. In the chaos, the K-9 howled again, deep, mournful, final. It turned to the fountain in the center of the mall and ran off into the darkness, disappearing as suddenly as it had arrived. Ellery stood over the caretaker's body. Hayes checked on the young woman, who was shaking uncontrollably. The mall was silent again, except for the sound of rain. Ellery looked toward the fountain through the broken glass of the roof. Somewhere beneath the water, something stirred. No one moved to investigate, because whatever had happened here was not over. The nightmare had only just begun. Quiet but powerful resolution. Ellery and Hayes stood outside Crestwood Mall hours later, rain still falling. The body was gone. The fountain was silent. Ellery looked at Hayes. "Some things don't die. They wait." Hayes nodded. staring at the dark silhouette of the mall. Behind them, in the shadows, the faint sound of howl echoed,